Hey, I'm here to tell you about If Design System. It's the insurance company I work for. I've been with If Design System for almost 4 years now. Yeah, I'll tell you almost all about our journey with design systems and design tokens. So this is the wonderful team we have now. Just recently, it has grown to such outrageous number of people. 5 years ago, it started out as a one-man team, one single developer that was providing components for the rest of the organization. So now we are army of 4 developers and 1 designated designer. So that's a great improvement. No backend. No, we're simply building UI components and design system. So no backend. The agenda for today, to basically set the stage on how we got to the place where we are, the history of it all, our moonshot that we basically created last year, what is our dream, where we want to be, and the reality where we are actually. So the historic view. In 1999, If brand was created with the blue logo, If and 3 dots. Then some time passed, some sort of rebranding was done, and after that rebranding, the company decided that they should have some sort of design document to better align our organization on how we do things on the UI side. And Botox library was created. Sometime later, Relax library was created. Relax library was meant for internal solutions. We have loads of them. You might think that if, well, maybe you have seen If somewhere around, maybe you have insurance from If. It's just basically a website with 3 buttons. I assure you, it's not like that. Actually, we have like an army of developers within the company of around 1,000 people. Everyone is working on their either internal or external app. And it's really crucial for us to be aligned on how we do things, optimize so that we don't recreate things from scratch all over the place. And then again, some rebranding happened in 2018 where company decided that it will go all beige. So that's when the appearance of Guybrush Design System came about, and later on it became If Design System. The year was 2000, colorized. Beautiful. So this is the Swedish website. I pulled it up from Web Archive. This is how we presented ourselves back then. Year 2003, this is how Latvian website looked like. Very fancy, digital first. Year 2006, this is the Swedish website. And Latvian website. Wow, it's amazing. They look the same, right? I wonder how they did it back then. Year 2012, that's when the buttons that look like candies were popular. And again, Latvian website, which is quite similar. That's pretty impressive for that time, right? Yeah, sometime around 2015 when the Botox library was created, there were some, I'm not sure if they were even designers, but probably people who liked design created these guidelines that, hey, this is how we want our buttons to look like. This is how we want our components to look like. And back then, as you can see, it's a PDF. That's where all of the design decisions were kept in PDFs in SharePoint. Very, very accessible, searchable, and discoverable. Yeah, so nothing much has changed on the design side. We still have some CTAs, some cards, etc., etc. So quite similar conceptually to what we have now. 2016. So the Bodox was started, you know, as a product inside of our company, and this product should have been used across the application teams to implement in their UIs, etc., etc. So I think that went pretty well. Again, Swedish and Latvian side, they're pretty similar. Same typography, same logo type. So doing great. Relax. That's when our company started to not decide, but to think about the branding a bit more closely, how they want to appear, etc., etc. So they started out with the internal Relax library. So here you can see the first appearance of the beige color and some blue action colors. Bodox becoming Guybrush, and then being used all over the place again. And in year 2000, it was apparent that Bodox is not enough, and we need something new, fresh, better, yada, yada, yada. So if design system came about, it was a design system made by this single developer, and it contained around 70 components. And each component had, I don't know, like 3 to 10 different variations, very specific implementations. If you know what node callback hell is, then equivalent to that was created in CSS. It was CSS selector hell, where selectors were nested deep inside of around 10 levels. And imagine if you need to override something as a application developer. It's impossible. It's nuts. Year 2003. Yeah, so we finally got ourselves a new global header, which looks good. Aligned on typography once more. We have a new logo type. Doing great. About this time, we have launched the latest iteration of our design system. We completely revamped how we do things. We decided that we don't want all of the selector hell. We want basic and small building blocks that are easily overridable. Why we need overrides, you might ask? Well, let's go back to the story where we have loads of applications being developed by loads of developers. We have products in all of the Nordic and Baltic markets, and of course, core systems for those markets as well. So we want to target all of these internal markets with our design system as well. We have now ever-evolving Figma library with components and examples on how to use our great building blocks. And we have loads of designers that are utilizing it and creating some, I would like to say, really nice designs for the current period. So let's step back a year or so ago when we still had the old design system with 70 plus components, et cetera, et cetera. And we took a step back and we wanted to kind of figure out things. Yeah, it was a weird period where we had to support all of these components, feature requests, bugs, etc., etc. And it was impossible. We were buried in work, and basically we spent most of our time on bugs. But yeah, that's just nasty. What we want to have all of the benefits of using a design system, not just because it is a design system and we have it, but we want to benefit from it. We want consistency in our UIs, in our brand, so that marketing and other branding campaigns use the same components to create, this consistent look and feel. Accessibility, which is a huge thing. And it's becoming a huge thing also here in Latvia. But if I'm not wrong, already in 2001, there were legislation laws in Norway and Finland that required apps to be accessible, customer-facing apps from private companies. And we want faster deliveries. Previous design system, it wasn't fast at all. Like I mentioned, we had huge amount of bugs. We had to support all of the variations, so there was no time for development, basically. Yeah, we want to deliver components fast, and we want to enable application teams to use those components fast and iterate on top of that quickly. We, as design system team, we want to have shared language among us, between developer and designer, and also between the design system itself and the application teams. And I think previous presenters explained how nicely can that be done, previously. And we want to reduce redundancy. As it was difficult to utilize our previous components, people were basically recreating the same components in their own apps. They looked the same, they felt the same, but they were not the same. So loads of redundancy, and that's bad. What we want to deliver, we want to have a nice documentation site. If it's not documented, it doesn't exist. We want to have a nice design asset library in Figma. That's the new fancy tool for designers to use. XD is dead. No one uses Sketch anymore, so Figma it is. Code libraries. Given how long its history is with development, it's natural that throughout its evolvement, also technologies evolved. And yeah, well, we still have Angular 1, React with classes, ASP.NET, and even some terminal applications left. So we have to find a way how to deliver things for those teams. On Figma, we now have UI kit, icon library, and a style library. Documentation site, this is the latest iteration. You can't find it anywhere. It's closed down behind Azure AD. But what we wanted there is to have design and code guidelines on how to download our components, how to use those components, and how to modify those components if needed. Code libraries. So first and foremost, CSS and HTML. That's the basic building blocks for all of the apps that we have. Some apps that have been created recently, they of course use the latest and greatest frameworks, and some of the developers consider React as one of those. And we also figured that we could provide web components. And we tried Stencil, but we went for Lit. Yeah, so C# devs like their C#, so they use Blazor, and we don't want to create components for yet another framework, so web components made sense. So the part 2 of our moonshot, tokens. We've heard there are tokens out there. So the premise is that tokens will improve the maintainability, flexibility, and consistency among designers, developers of the solutions that we provide. So we went with that and started out small. So we created some ideas that were put into Figma on how our sizing and spacing might look like. What are the rules there for border radius? Yeah, we want to have some sort of border radius everywhere. And we want to have some sort of defined set of colors that we will utilize across our product. Shadows, that's the next new thing in our designs. And of course, we want to tokenize that as well. Typography, it's a crucial thing for branding. Yeah, the two big ones are just the like examples of how we name things, but basically here you can see all of the typography rules that we have across our systems, quite a lot. And putting it all together, we can create our army of buttons that will allow you to button everywhere. With that in mind, we took a look at some examples that are found on the internet, what other people create with tokens, how they create tokens, and we came up with this nice article which explains the nomenclature of how you should name things, how you should group things, etc., 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 etc. Before creating the latest iteration of a design system, we tried out this approach on the previous one. As we didn't have any kind of tokens or variables, no nothing, it wasn't a breaking change to add them. So we went ahead. What we came up with, we understood that we need some sort of primitive level where we embed the primitives, colors, size, space, border radius, etc., etc. Then we need some sort of system level where we define, in all of the other examples here, I'm talking about colors for simplicity. So we need some sort of palette. That would be like the theme. Primitives are the building blocks. They're just color definitions so that we don't have to remember hex codes, but we can name them by using some sort of, like human language. Primitive blue 400. Sounds good. Palette, and then again, some sort of system level variable which describes where that color is used. System action default. So that color is for some sort of action item. And that action item, well, button is a good example for that, use case for that. So component, button, field, emphasized, background. There you have it.
Multiple sizes and components.
That as well. But for simplicity, like I said, I'm talking about color here. So Yeah. Otherwise, you will get a spider web of tokens, which will be undecipherable. How to put them in our code? We know that in Figma at that time there was a plugin called Token Studio, which we still use to some extent. But we knew that in order to use the Figma tokens, we want TypeScript code so that we don't have to deal with strings. We want to deal with objects. So yeah, we want that. And we want style dictionary to apply some sort of transformations on those JSON strings that come out of Token Studio. And we for sure want CSS variables. We want those variables to be available in scaffolding so that in scaffolding we can describe the basic things of our apps, colors, typography, sizing and spacing, and we want variables in our components so that we have component level variables which can be overridden as well. So yeah, something like that we have in designs, we should have also in our code. Some code. We created a pipeline where designers would create tokens in Figma, push them to the repository, then a build step would run, and we would create TypeScript objects out of those tokens with values so that we can in turn import all the TypeScript code and run some transformations on it with style dictionary. Arbitrary code, just filler. So once we got all of those variables out and started spreading them into our components, in the previous version of the design system, we often got questions like, hey, well, when I need an override, which variable should be overridden? Is it component level? Is it system level? Or is it primitive? And then we thought like, hey, why would you want to override primitive? And then people answered, hey, but it's a variable. Okay, well, kind of makes sense. If we put this thing into another graph, we see that generated variables look something like this. These are CSS variables. Yeah, font is a bit probably too small for you to see, but anyway, there are loads of levels for variables until you get from the primitive to the button. And that sort of kind of is a bit confusing to some. And also our style dictionary config didn't look that great. If you ever come across style dictionary, it's a very weird tool to use, at least in my opinion, where you have to do things in a certain way. You're not allowed a lot of freedom. Yeah, and for everything, you basically need a config. Relationship management between all of the variables and all of the tokens. So if you have some sort of set structure in your designs, you need to mimic that in your code, so you have one-to-one parity. On one hand, that's good, but on the other hand, it bloats your style dictionary config. Unclear override path, like which level to override in your variable madness. And worst part of all, designers are in control. No developers like that designers are in control. An announcement that made us really happy, Figma Variables, which is still in beta for I don't know how long, but that's probably how things go when Adobe does stuff. Figma was acquired by Adobe, so They're really good at taking our money, that's for sure. Given that, we thought, okay, Token Studio is weird. Figma variables isn't ready yet. We hate style dictionary. How do we go about it then? For the latest design system version, we don't have such a fancy implementation as Emergent does, but nonetheless, it's something that really made sense to us. And instead of trying to like synchronize on every level possible, we said, hey, you designers, you have your freedom in Figma on the system level. That's where we connect to you guys, because that's what we are interested in. We're interested in theming part. We're not interested in weird names for component variables. We're not interested in weird names for primitive variables and everything in between. We just want to know how to apply the theme to our components. So we threw so much stuff out. And what we ended up with is system level token, system action default, and a component level token. So 2 levels of tokens, which makes it really easy to map out for others, to document it. It's easy for us to understand what's happening. And instead of having primitives, we tie the primitive values directly into our system tokens. So basically, whenever you would want to change the color of the button, you would do it either here or here. 2 places, nothing more. Let's take a look at component, how we might develop a component. So this is a modal window, an overlay, depending on how you want to name it. We have overlay components in our design system. We have all of the typography rules, etc., etc., etc. So we go ahead and just, import, add spans and whatnot. But we notice that, hey, we have the icon, but we don't have the blue background on the icons because we just have icons, right? They're SVGs. But here, again, it's really small. Figma developer mode. Once we inspect an element, we can see that our designer has made a choice that, hey, here the background is system action default, and the icon itself is recolored. System icon inverted default. That tells us something. That tells us the names of the tokens that we want to use in our new component. A component that doesn't really exist in our design system, and it will be created by the application team. Again, it's really easy. We take a div, we set its border radius, we set its color to action default, we set the color to icon, system icon inverted default, and here we go. So what are the challenges? In the current setup, where we don't really like Token Studio, and we don't yet have all of the features in Figma variables available to us yet. We're kind of in the middle, and basically the source of truth has come from design's token repository to code. We set the rules. We create tokens if they do not exist, and then we synchronize them back to our token repository and Figma. Changes in tooling. Yeah, that's what I spoke about, because it's impossible to predict what will happen if, I don't know, Token Studio is retired. It's a plugin for Figma. It's not a feature of Figma. It's developed by a third party. Figma variables that was supposed to be developed by Figma and like launched out of beta this October or November. When was the Figma config? I don't remember. It's not there yet. General knowledge passed around on Medium. We read so many articles, we watched so many tutorials, videos on YouTube on how people describe their theories on how to name things, how to group things. And in our experience, it was like way too much. We just want simple components, and we want really simple way to modify them, to use them, to do whatever, but like simple, without much overhead. Given the amount of designers and developers we have, mostly the next point is regarding designers. Occasionally, tokens aren't the first choice when designing UIs, because you have this crazy idea, you slap things together, and off you go. It's like, you go to a developer and just, hey, this is something I created, and off the designer goes, and the developer looks at it like, that's blue, yeah, cool. Yeah. So alignment is crucial thing to have, but it's also a very challenging thing to have if people have gotten used to developing things in a manner that they like, that isn't in line with what the organization wants. And if it's not documented, it doesn't exist. We're really struggling with documenting our tokens. We struggled with documenting tokens when we had everything wrapped in Figma Token Studio style dictionary thingy, and we're struggling now. But at least now we can just post a link to our repository where CSS variables are listed and developers are happy. Okay, so back to the moonshot. There are times when I'm super pessimistic, and there are times when I'm super optimistic. So it's wild. But for the most part, for the new components that we have with the simple structure, and if the designs are nice, if the designs use auto layout, they have embedded Figma variables. So basically, whenever a developer would inspect the document, the developer would see loads of light blue and pink areas that would be marked with variables, and they wouldn't have to think about, hey, how big of a gap is here? How, I don't know, what radius should I use? That's getting better. That's being improved, and this is really good. We have now system-wide overrides that can be done on customer-facing apps when you visit ifxx. Internal apps, for example, for frontliners. Those are the people who work in call centers where they want their UIs to be super cramped up, so that there's loads of information. They can have their emails, their, I don't know, like call history, and I don't know, TikTok somewhere there. No, we don't have if TikTok, but yeah. And partner apps. Whenever you would buy a car, for example, in Sweden, at BMW, they would immediately offer you to buy insurance right there at the dealership. And guess what? That insurance comes from IF, and it's rebranded to fit the design language of BMW. So yeah, our design system now allows that to happen. Takeaways. As much as we would try, we will never satisfy everyone, not even ourselves. There are loads of improvements that have to be done. There are loads of things that still have to be improved, but we're getting there. We're decreasing the amount of code that has to be written by having these small building blocks of components. We don't provide implemented card like with picture, title, some paragraph, section points, and links. We provide those elements so that teams can assemble those things together themselves and retheme them if they would like to. Baby steps and gradual improvements. Yeah. Again, it's the story of having these small building blocks, and it's about teaching others on how to utilize them, how to use them. That process is really slow in an organization which is as large as IF is, because even though we have so many developers and so many application teams, our focus, of course, is on the UI, but their focus is on, fulfilling the needs of the business, and not always having the correct padding or line height is the number one priority for business. They would rather see a button that takes your money. Organization-wide alignment for the win. Yeah. Like, I'm a front-end developer, but I think I spend most of my time talking with other stakeholders, explaining how design system could benefit them. Yeah, I've become a sort of a salesperson, which is weird. That's the end of my TED Talk. Thank you. A question?
As I understood throughout the life cycle of the design system, there was a point where there were many semantic layers between the system level, the component level, and now there are just these two.
Yeah.
Do you feel any loss by, in fact, of removing all of the other ones from between them? Is there any drawback to this, or did they just be redundant?
Only drawback to it is the fact that people were overriding things at different levels, and now they can't. And now all of their overrides are gone, and that's a breaking change. That's the only drawback.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a question. What's the benefit of creating every component yourself, where you are not using libraries such as Material UI and adjust the theme based on your token?
Material UI isn't a sort of like a generic platform. It's like
their own
library with UI atomic components such as buttons and so on.
But that's in React, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in React.
Yeah, but the thing that we have in our organization is that there are so many legacy projects, et cetera, et cetera. We can't solely rely on React. That would have been nice, and I've had that discussion with some of the developers that chose Material UI to implement our visual identity, and they still live with it, and they're happy with it. But it's not really the case for the whole organization. So yeah, CSS components, React components for those that use React, and web components for those that are not that into web development.
So you're saying if you wouldn't have such a big legacy, you would choose also the library over.
We would definitely consider it.
Thanks, that was a great keynote. Is my understanding correct that you're sort of enforcing design system usage for everything customer facing?
Yes.
If so, how have you achieved it, given your entire zoo of different animals from different eras?
Good question. Like I said, I spend loads of time talking with different kinds of stakeholders and trying to sort of like agree on the fact that our design system is so easy to use now that it wouldn't be wise not to use it.
Yeah.
And what really helps is those that have bought in, they really spread the good word, and they, like we have this like huge agile setup where, teams are demoing stuff across the whole organization and in between themselves, and they say, hey, we use this design system for this, and it made the process like 5x faster. And that's what really gets people's attention, and they're like, hey, are we using design system? Why are we doing this the slow way? Yeah.
How much did the adoption take, if it's not a secret?
How much, like
Time.
Well,
on the calendar, not like calendar, but calendar time.
24 years. It varies from team to team. It's not like there are still teams that have the old Botox library with pill-shaped buttons. Yeah, so it again depends on whether or not that specific team or app has been targeted to be rebranded, or it's just there to live its life until something new comes. Yeah. All right. Thanks for attention.
Maybe I can add a note on that. Why you don't apply those tokens for the material UI? I'm not a front-end developer. Maybe someone can fix me. But what I see, from my point of view, that it will not be so maintainable. To apply, you depend on third-party components library. Material UI, you cannot manage that versioning and so, and still the maintainability will be hard. You should add extra layer for that. You should set your classes, define the classes somewhere, then put those options, properties inside those classes, and then change the classes for the components that provide material UI. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I see it. It's hard to maintain.
Because like they have much more manpower than you and your company have, because they're open source and they will crush bugs way faster than you can afford them.
Yeah, but you will depend from them. You don't know on when they will decide to change the margins or something else, but you align with, you don't need to change, you can leave with their margins at the moment, but after the 1 month they release that their margin from the 5 will be 10, as example, or 7, and then you, at least what I see.
you can structure whole component based on theme, and the theme can be like component level specific. You can change only left side of button padding, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, but still, you should see the changes what they made for their component, no? No. Maybe there's need for extra discussion.
The React material is really good library, and we could process our tokens through style library and target their theme file. That's also a JSON, so it's just a matter of mapping things. But yeah, it wouldn't really work in our case. And while that is true, what you're saying that there's only one theme file, gosh, you should have seen what developers create with React Material UI. That's like they create a theme file for the whole app. They create theme for components. They override their components with styled components and with CSS. Yeah, yeah. But again, if you have a team of just 5 developers and you agree on all of those things, then yeah, it's the perfect solution. But if you have some sort of rotation going on in your team and you're really busy and your tech lead is, I don't know, watching YouTube or something and not paying attention to your pull requests, I mean, then it gets out of hand real quick, and it becomes even messier than dealing with CSS.
You can avoid that as well.
I think we talk about the maintainability. Still, I think the solution what you work on is the best one. At least I think so.
Well, that's what we kind of think as well.
Imagine that design system for you is only for your own product, yes? Or
yeah, just my question, just only for you, or just you will find some solution to sell it, or just
we won't probably sell it.
Just for your own house and
yeah, because it's even though it's not restricted to do so, it's still hosted in our Azure, and you need access to our NPM feed. Enterprise. Everything in enterprise happens in Microsoft World.
You just can open the if.lv and clone the tokens, I think, CSS.
That if.lv is actually React Material.
Why I ask you this? How you support the mock, or there is no need for that? Maybe some design can be some buttons in red color, and at the same time I need a black one.
Our idea there, I totally forgot to talk about it. Thanks for reminding.
That's why I asked.
Yeah. The initial idea was that before we used Figma Token Studio, was that, all right, we would have these themes embedded in our tokens that designers would take our UI kit, they would copy the style library, apply all the new colors, and then just swap style libraries in Figma. Instead of going into like component level and adjusting things and tokens there, but they would just apply the whole style library. They would again put it through the build system and style dictionary, and they would have all of the new tokens that they could import into their code library and replace the ones that we have currently.
But in the same time, you can support two themings for the application.
That was what we thought we could have. In reality, designers don't want to create different style libraries. So, yeah, basically now the theming is done solely on development side for now, because we're still hoping on Figma variables to ease that process for us. And in turn, we will create, again, new pipeline for that synchronization to happen. But yeah, currently it's all about CSS variables. If you don't like our colors, apply your CSS variables, put them, yeah, put them in the next line in your head, and yeah.
There can be about the spell dictionary, but yeah, I think that will.
Let's come
Yeah.
with you.